When I was 6 years old, my parents were teaching me about self-discipline, especially around food serving sizes and making sure that I only took what I could eat on my plate. And so they gave me an idiom to help me remember what that would be like. So they would say, anytime that I would take more than I could eat and I couldn't finish it, they would say, your eyes are bigger than your stomach. Now, at 6 years old, I really didn't get that, but it stuck with me. So one day, my parents take me to an all-you-can-eat buffet-style restaurant. And I'm in line, and I'm putting the food on my plate, and I look down, and there it is, right next to the rolls, a whole bin full of vanilla ice cream, complete with a little scooper right next to it. I'm thinking, I hit the jackpot. This is all you can eat. No single-serving scoop size for little Jeffrey. No, I can have as much as I want. So I go down there, 1 scoop, 2 scoops, 3 scoops. And I take my very full plate back to the table, and I look at it, and I could hear my parents' voice inside my head saying, your eyes are bigger than your stomach. And I thought, I'm probably not going to be able to finish this. I should start with dessert first. Makes sense to a 6-year-old, so I did. I took the spoon and I grabbed that vanilla ice cream, and it wasn't vanilla ice cream. It was butter. And I learned my second very important idiom that day. You can't judge a book by its cover. Well, we use idioms and phrases and words to describe all kinds of things that we experience in life, don't we? We use them to describe whole people groups. Take the generations, for example. We've got the baby boomers. They're known as the me generation, right? Then we've got my generation, Generation X. We're just angry and cynical. Then you have the millennials. And the media has inundated us with all kinds of great words and descriptions for that generation, right? They call them entitled, unreliable, uncommitted. They've got one foot in the company and the other foot right out the door. They're like little bunnies. They hop from job to job to job, right? Well, is there really any truth to that? Is there any hard research data to back up the hype? Well, in 2017, the Bureau of Labor Statistics released a longitudinal study with nearly 10,000 participants. And in it, they were asking, okay, how many jobs does a person have by the time they're 18 to 28 years old, when they enter the labor force by the time they're 28? This group they studied, 7.3. Okay, there you have it. There's the research. Millennials, I guess you really do move from job to job. You guess you're really unreliable. Oh, wait a minute. Don't judge a book by its cover. This report is not talking about millennials. It's talking about baby boomers. That's right. It's about Grandpa. You know Grandpa, when I was your age, I had one job, feeding pig feed to all the animals on Old Man Johnson's farm, and I did it every day till my fingers bled, and I kept that job for 40 years. Yeah, well, Grandpa lied. So, what's the real stat for millennials? Almost the same. So do millennials move from job to job? Yeah. But apparently, so do baby boomers. And there's a good reason for both groups to do so. Well, I want to narrow this down a little bit to just leaders, because in any generation that we talk about, there's always a subset that's different than the rest of the group. And certainly leaders are different. I mean, leaders are always growing. They're always learning. They're always looking for that next hill to climb or conquer. There's a yearning deep inside us as leaders, isn't it? That moves us toward a goal, toward achievement. Millennial leaders are no different. In fact, according to Gallup Analytics, millennials rank the opportunity to learn and grow as more important job considerations than just about anything else last year. And those same analytics also showed that most millennials didn't get the opportunities to learn and grow in their jobs. So I ask all of us, above the age of 35, if you had a job and you're a leader, you didn't have a chance to learn or grow in your job or lead in your job, how long would you stick with it? Think about this. Every generation has some expectation as to how long it should take before you move into a leadership position where you get promoted. So for the baby boomers, that process and expectation went like this. Work real hard in a company, and in 10 years, maybe you might find a spot in leadership. For Gen Xers, that expectation was 5 years. For millennials, it's now 1 to 2 years. Now, maybe that expectation is not very realistic in your organization, but you have to recognize the cultural reality that this generation is living in and engage them at that level, or you're just going to lose them to the competition who will engage them. Oh, but millennials don't stick around. They're going to leave anyway, so why bother developing them? That's actually a view that many older leaders have, but we need to change that perspective. The latest research with 1,500 plus millennials suggests that if organizations just engage this young workforce within the first 90 days of employment, they're more likely to stick around. In this case, about 6 years instead of 2 or 3. Here's why. They want a seat at the table. These young millennial leaders want to know that they've got a future in your organization. Yes, they like the artisan lunches and they like the gym in the office, but they want to know they've got a future where they can learn and grow and achieve and lead. And they want to know that that future is relatively soon. These millennial leaders are your competitive edge. They're sitting in your workforce right now. How can you engage them? Well, I'm going to give you 3 specific ways to engage them in just a minute, but first I want to talk about one of the challenges I see with this group. One of the major challenges I see with millennial leaders, quite frankly, they just don't have much patience. All right, so it's my fault, my generation's fault, we'll take responsibility. After all, we created the millennials, right? We put rubber mats under their playgrounds and stuck a helmet on their head and wrapped them in bubble wrap so they wouldn't get hurt. Then we created technology that made information plentiful and instant. And we created a world where if you can't get what you're looking for in 30 seconds, it's just too long. We have an environment where faster is better. You can learn just about anything you need from a video. And then we sensationalize a few young entrepreneurs who go from 0 to billionaire seemingly overnight. And then we wonder why millennial leaders expect to be promoted in 1 to 2 years. We created the expectation. Millennial leaders in particular, have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. And if plan A doesn't work fast enough for them with your organization, they'll just move to that next organization that will work for them. And if plan A falls apart altogether, they just move to plan B and reinvent themselves. If that falls apart, just go to plan C, reinvent again. This generation's ability to reinvent themselves quickly is a strength. It really is a strength. But it's also a weakness, and thus the challenge. That weakness is that just not enough patience. And they need the wisdom and the mentoring of older leaders to come alongside, to help them stick around long enough to see the fruit of their leadership, the fruit of the projects that they're working on. Personally, I think every college student should have to plant a garden and harvest it in a year in order to graduate. It's delayed gratification. Nothing teaches it like planting a garden. I remember when my wife and I lived in Western New York State. We had a small house, but a fairly large backyard. And she grew up gardening. So one day she says to me, "Hey, we should plant a garden." Now, if you've been married longer than an hour, guys, you know that when your wife says, "We should do anything," really means, "You need to do this, I'm going to supervise." So we planted a garden. This wasn't a box garden, okay? Since I'm having to do some of this, this is a man's garden, okay? Big vision. So I plot out 12-foot by 18-foot section. I'm clearing out the dirt. And yes, we did plant the garden. And so we're tilling it. So she plants her seeds, her tomato seeds, her sunflower seeds, and then green beans and pumpkins. And I'm watering it all in, thinking this is going to be great. And I'm watering and watering. And after 3 days of watering, I look down. I don't see anything growing. How long is this going to take before I can have a tomato? I should ask the master gardener. So I go inside and say, "Master gardener, I don't see anything growing. How long will it take before I can have a tomato?" And my wife looks at me, shakes her head, gives me that look that said, "Oh, I love you, but you're an idiot. Here's the packet of tomato seeds." And I look at the packet and it says, "Harvest in 110 days. 110 days, that's nearly 4 months. That's what they made grocery stores for. You just go down to the grocery store and you get a tomato, 10 minutes, you're eating it, you're happy. But this is what we do in business, isn't it? We plant seeds. We water those seeds. We nurture those relationships. And in time, we harvest. Now, yes, I know we live in a very fast-paced world, and there's times that we have to be flexible and adaptable and move quickly to take advantage of some of these opportunities. But there are certain leadership principles, certain relationship principles that take time. You cannot shortcut them. And millennial leaders need the wisdom and life experience of older leaders to come alongside so that they can become great leaders. So, how do we engage our millennial leaders? Well, we know from the research that they want to lead and learn and grow. So, the first thing you can do is let them lead. What are you doing to let them lead something, to lead a project, to lead a team? Now, granted, you have to work within the confines of your organization and your staff and how it's structured. Maybe you could have them co-lead a team, co-lead a project. Is there an older leader that can take a younger leader under their wing? Some of the larger organizations are doing something similar to this idea, where they're creating smaller team-like divisions that are replicating a startup scenario. And what's happening is these millennial leaders are having a great opportunity to see the impact of their leadership decisions. And the result is that these leaders are feeling like their opinion really matters, that they are contributing significantly to moving that organization forward. Now, maybe your organization is smaller, and no doubt you've got any number of challenges facing you each and every day. Well, why not give one of those challenges to one of your young leaders? Tell them, hey, you do the research, you build the team, you put together the plan. If that plan makes sense, implement it. The point here is don't wait for somebody or someone else to lead and engage your leaders. You do it. Do it now. Lead them. And then resource them. Give them the time and the talent and the budget to do that. All right, second way we can engage our leaders, invest in their continued learning. Have them do the research. Find 2 or 3 really great leadership learning opportunities and have them pick one. Tell them you'll pay to send them to go do it. Nothing says you're a valued employee like a week-long leadership retreat to the Bahamas. Work with your young leaders. Find out what skills they need to learn and develop, and then resource them to develop. Make it part of your leadership culture. Leaders are always growing. I mean, you look for ways to grow your leadership, look for ways to grow their leadership. It will speak volumes to them on how much you value them as a team member, and it will demonstrate that they have a future with your organization. All right, third way that we can engage our millennial leaders. Incorporate their aspirations and goals into the conversation. Talk to them about it. Don't wait for the performance review. That's too late. Do it often, do it now. As a matter of fact, here's your assignment. Tomorrow or the next day that you go into the office, sit down with your millennial leaders and ask them what their aspirations and goals are. You might discover some hidden talents and skills that weren't there before because you never asked. You might have hired a young leader to be part of your sales team. And by having this conversation, you might discover that she has a talent and skill and passion in technology that could revolutionize how you sell and market your business. Ask them. And then incorporate those aspirations and goals into their leadership development. Be proactive in their development. Well, I've learned a lot since being a 6-year-old in a restaurant, especially when it comes to not judging a book by its cover. I certainly know the difference between vanilla ice cream and butter. So as you look at the buffet of your workforce and see all the millennials there, don't judge a book by its cover. Millennial leaders may look like other millennials on the outside, but they're very different. I've found that they're focused, they're driven, they're optimistic, they're innovative. Don't miss out on this very valuable resource by not identifying who they are and engaging them. Leadership doesn't say, hey, lead your team if you think they're worth it, if you think they'll stick around. You've been given the gift of leadership. It's an awesome privilege and responsibility, so lead. Make your team worth it. Your organization needs millennial leaders. The success of your organization depends on it. You need their creativity. You need their unique view on the world. But there's something more, something personal for you as a leader. Yes, these young leaders need you, but you need them. Millennials, they've got an energy that will energize you. Their hope is infectious. Their optimism will inspire you. And as you pour into these leaders to help them be all that they can be, you will become the leader you were meant to be. It's been a privilege and an honor to speak with you tonight. Thank you.